Good morning, Michigan exporters and trade business experts. Welcome to today's webinar, where you will learn some of today's best practices in the digital realm to make 2022 your best export year. We appreciate your time today, and we hope that you will find today's webinar a great investment on your time this Thursday morning. We're going to give everybody just a minute or so to finish logging in and to get settled. And then we'll get started with a short round of introductions of the great exporters and trade experts on today's panel. So we'll just give everybody a few seconds here. And in the meantime, I'll introduce you to the people who are joining us today. So first off is going to be Alyssa Tracey, who is Director of International Trade at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the MEDC, which is Michigan's official trade and export promotion agency. Also joining us today is Mitch, Fedie, Marketing Manager at Pettibone, also known as Traverse Lift. And he's in the Upper Peninsula in Baraga, Michigan, and he is a manufacturer and exporter of heavy machinery. Also joining us today from Grand Rapids, Michigan is Andrew Lawler, Business Development Manager at IBT Online. And finally, I'm Adrian Viller. I am Head of Business Development for IBT Online, based decidedly not in Michigan, but in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But it is a pleasure to be with you today and to speak with Michigan exporters. So just a little bit about us before we get started here with the content of today's webinar. As a bit of an introduction, the IBT and IBT Online stands for International Business and Technology. We're a digital marketing and technology firm with a mission of supporting U.S. exporters in growing their export sales, brand, and business in whatever their top international target markets are. We've been working closely with the U.S. Commercial Service and our state trade partners for the past 4 and 5 years, and we were recognized with the President's E Award for Export Service in 2020 for our contribution to the expansion of U.S. export and supporting our client success. Some additional quick facts about us. We are a US-based company with over 19 years experience in the industry. We have offices in Michigan, we have offices in Florida, and we've developed over those 19 years relationships with over 25 different US state development agencies, including with the MEDC, and we've delivered successfully over 1,500 of our online global programs to over 500 clients in over 24 languages, 40 different countries, and 65 different target markets. We have a lot of free resources, just like today's webinar, on our website on ibt.onl in the form of short videos, blogs, and infographics about the online world in a variety of different jurisdictions. Finally, you'll see some impressive numbers at the bottom, which really just speaks to our obsession on client feedback and on continuously improving our programs to achieve your goals. Now for today, we have what I think is a very nice agenda lined up for you. And we'll start with Alyssa, who is going to give us an overview of the many great resources the MEDC offers to Michigan's exporters and businesses. Then Andrew will discuss why Michigan exporters, whether you're a manufacturer, a service provider, or an agribusiness, why you need to pivot to digital to accelerate your international growth in 2022. That'll be followed by a Michigan case study of a company that's done just this, Pettibone, which will be presented by Mitch, Fedie, their marketing manager. Andrew will then come back to give you some details on best practice website localization for Michigan's exporters and what that looks like. And finally, I'll discuss some of the key online marketing trends to watch for in 2022 to make this your best export year. Before wrapping it up, and some takeaways, and of course, your questions, which, by the way, you may submit at any time using our chat feature. I'll be monitoring it, and I'll save those for the end. I'll also be hitting you with a poll here and there to get some real-time feedback from you, but I'll let you know when those are coming. So with that, Alyssa Tracey, International Trade Director for the MEDC, welcome. It's great to see you again. And the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, good morning, everyone, and great to connect with you all today. I will just give a brief overview of the Michigan International Trade Program and the resources that we have that you can take advantage of to help offset some of the costs associated with participating in some of IBT Online solutions to help increase your company's visibility in international markets. I'll start with a brief overview of just our team. We've got 11 team members that are all dedicated to helping your company go global. And we have 5 field-based international trade managers. These are the individuals that you will likely come into contact with first. Chris Bozio covers Northern Michigan, Wei Wei Liu covers the west side of the state, and we've got David Newhouse, Jake Schrader, and Brendan Cherry, each covering Southeast Michigan and Mid-Michigan. So what I wanted to talk about today was not only introducing you to our team members, our international trade managers will be your first line of defense in accessing all of the resources that we have, but more specifically, I wanted to talk about the MyStep grant program. This program, Michigan has competed for every year since 2011, and we have received national recognition for our performance in this award. And what that means is we get to bring more dollars from the federal government to our Michigan businesses. Now, companies in Michigan can receive up to $15,000 a year in grant funding to offset export activities. Now, not every activity is an eligible expense, but we have a lot of eligible expenses, including digital marketing and creation of country-specific websites, which IBT Online can provide. Now, you need to be a small business, so typically that means 500 employees or less, and it is a match grant program. So the $15,000 is eligible once the full $15,000 is eligible once you have reached $20,000 in eligible expenses. So 75% of all of your costs may be reimbursed through this program, up to $15,000 a year. In a normal year, we've got hundreds of these grants that we approve, and we're always looking to make sure new companies are aware of our program and accessing these competitive funds. Next slide. So, like I mentioned, there are many different kinds of activities that are involved in the export process that can be offset by the MyStep grant program. So notably on here, we've got foreign trade missions and sales trips, international trade shows, things that in a normal year, companies would be accessing quite a bit of. As travel is still not quite resumed to pre-pandemic levels, I did want to draw attention to a lot of the non-travel uses of the STEP grant program. So notably, international website development, export training, e-commerce platform expenses, and compliance testing of existing products into new international markets. So today we'll talk more, we'll learn more about the international website development, but know that marketing media and other expenses can also be offset up to the full $15,000 a year through our STEP grant program. Next slide. I want to give you a brief snapshot of the timeline that we require for companies. We are as flexible as we can be, but we do just need to know in advance what you will utilize the STEP grant funds for, what you would like to use the STEP grant funds for, 3 days prior to the activity start date. So unfortunately, we can't do any retroactive payments. But just 2 things I wanted to highlight here. The submitting an application 3 days prior to the start date, and that goes through your international trade manager. And then the last one on here is quarterly progress reports for 2 years following the activity. What we want to know, and what the federal government wants to know as well, is how are these funds impacting your business? And you'll hear later today from Mitch from Pettibone and how these funds can impact your company. But we want to know from you on a quarterly basis for 2 years, what sales results you have achieved based on receiving these funds. What kind of activities were able to actually complete, and how has that impacted your bottom line? Next slide. So this chart, I am so proud to show you just how much our STEP grant program has impacted positively Michigan exporters. Over $4 billion in facilitated export sales has been achieved as a result of companies requesting, utilizing, and then letting us know how much the STEP funds have impacted their business. Over a normal year, again, you can see we've got hundreds of millions of dollars that have been reported from companies that access these funds and then go on to increase their international sales. Next slide. So with that, I will just thank you all for listening. I encourage you to contact your international trade manager and tap into these funds, if not just for international website development through IBT Online, for any other activities that you might be taking on, and know that these funds are yours to take throughout this fiscal year. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa, so much. And yes, we certainly encourage you to get in contact with the MEDC and the international trade managers. We actually have a question here. We have our first poll question of the day, and that poll question is going to be popping up on everybody's screens right now. There we go. So that poll question is, are you already in contact or have you already used the services of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation? And we see a lot of people on here voting yes, great. A lot of people have used the MEDC's services, the great support that's available for Michigan's exporters. We're going to give everybody just a few more seconds to chime in, but yes, it's about a 50-50 split between yes frequently and yes occasionally, so that's phenomenal. And do lean into the MEDC. They're a phenomenal resource, and they're just a very caring group of people who will connect your business to the right resources, whether it's for the STEP grant or for other purposes. Perfect. So we're going to close that poll out. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. And with that, it's time to turn it over to Andrew to tell us about online business development tools.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you again, Alyssa, for joining us and talking about the Michigan STEP grant and, of course, some of the benefits that a lot of our exporters are seeing. And I love to see that graph of where you guys started back in 2012 and where we're at now with the increase of STEP grant usage, but also the increase of ROI on those. I think that was very impressive, and I think something a trend to continue. And just on that note, you know, we're going to be speaking about trends and how Michigan exporters can lean on business development tools to grow their exports and why it's necessary. So we're going to be starting with some trends and some of the sort of some top level attributes of the online world and how we can attribute this to the success of using online tools. So, you know, here we see some existing trends that we saw not only in 2021, but what we will continue to see in 2022. And so from these 5 that we see on the left, you know, e-commerce is here to stay, not only in the B2C space, but also in the B2B. We'll talk about the importance and the increase in e-commerce usage, sales, and also individuals buying from e-commerce, most recently and moving forward. Working from anywhere, you know, for those companies that are able to work from anywhere or work from home, we're seeing is becoming a trend that isn't going away. Of course, the increasing use of AI, of computers to build your business. Data privacy, you know, obviously it's very relevant when you're in certain markets like Europe and Canada and China and the online world as far as regulations are concerned. But now we're seeing this a lot more in the US. Obviously with big social media companies coming to the forefront, such as Facebook or Meta being under fire, or you see things like Apple, who was, you know, earlier in the year of 2021, setting off data privacy regulations for their iPhone users or for their Apple users. And the last one here we see going green, something that's been extremely important as far as the global climate is concerned. If you haven't seen the movie Don't Look Up, I encourage you to watch it. I think it was a great watch, but it's obviously all about global climate and the necessity to change, you know, what our activities are doing and impacting as far as carbon offsets, you know, creating renewable energy credits, being more thoughtful as far as the earth that we live on and how real things could change in the near future. And so all of this really translates to how best can we leverage these 5 trends on the left side, and obviously, as Alyssa mentioned, things are not as normal right now. Things are, travel is becoming less and less, and online tools are still kind of the forefront of tackling each of these 5 points. So online tools are here to stay, and ultimately they're here to allow your company to interact with the clients where they want to be found. And speaking of where they want to be found, in the next slide we'll talk about some of the statistics behind that. So here we see 2 different slides, and ultimately it's just a quick overview of the global internet usage and also the social media usage per just a few months ago. So just to run through some of the important numbers that we see, there's about 4.9 billion internet users worldwide at the moment. And when you compare this to October of 2020, that's a 5% increase from the prior year. And from all of those users, they spend an average of 7 hours online each day. That's 7 hours. Whether they're at work, they're on their phone after work, they're on their phone at work, they're going to be using their phones for the majority of their day and looking at either business practices or looking at ways to build their personal or professional lives online. So it really does show the potential. And now we transition to the right side where we look at social media, which has been even more, and we look at social media which has been even more explosive. So of that 4.9 billion internet users, 4.5 billion of them are utilizing social media. So as far as the rate is concerned, this is a 10% increase year on year from individuals who weren't using social media the year prior to now using. I mean, the 10% increase is quite a lot, and individuals are now scrolling through LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of these different platforms, as we know in the US, but also many other platforms that are relevant to international markets. And just to note, the last thing here, I mean, each of them are spending 2.5 hours on average scrolling through those social media platforms. So whether your business is relevant to e-commerce or just getting the word and brand awareness out there through social media posts, 2.5 hours is something to take a look at and take note of. So in 2021 and now going into 2022, it's been marked by a very user-centric approach. This has been important for us to understand, for marketeers to understand, and also small businesses to understand as we all continue to grow our digital world. I just wanted to highlight a few of the most important tools that we find to be best practice and that we find to have the most impact to reach your global audience. And these are things like website localization, creating e-commerce stores, and then also utilizing online marketing like search engine marketing and also social media marketing. So we can go into these at a much more granular level as the presentation goes on. And here we talk about really how 2 of those core programs, 2 of these core online tools are related to each other. So what we see is that our many US exporters are trying to reach their audience at search engines, so therefore we're building websites. So once we build a website in international markets, then the second part of that is, well, how do I get more traffic? How do I get more conversions to that website? And that's when search engine marketing and social media marketing comes into play. So once you have the website, we implement search engine and social media programs, and that funnels all of your traffic and your engagement and eventually conversions back to the website. And they really work in a very familiar way together as those 2 core competencies to online marketing in an international aspect. And the next few slides here, we're going to be speaking, don't take it from us really, it's going to be some US exporters that have taken advantage of these online tools that have found success. We have a few quotes on this page that I just wanted to highlight before we jump to a quick video. And you can hear from some, again, exporters that talk about the core ROI that they receive from creating a website or a online marketing program. Ultimately, we see the first one here, one of our clients, Advanced Super Abrasive, speaking about the amount of leads that they were receiving from their website, as one of their core metrics was to generate more leads with their end users. And after going live with Mexico and Canada, within weeks, they were generating 10 RFQs per week, which is a pretty incredible number, and for his company, says has never happened before. We look at the right side of the screen with Hardtrue, whereas they took an e-commerce approach, and they understood then the importance of translating and localizing per market to gather more e-commerce sales in Brazil and in Latin America. A fellow Michigan manufacturer in Fullerton Tool talks about how crucial website localization is, and just being a smart business decision. And the last quote that I'll mention before diving into the video is from United Electric Controls, talking about the amount of page views, the increase in analytics that they've been able to see from their localized sites, and the conversions that they've been able to translate into actual revenue and actual sales regarding their localized sites. So with that, we'll jump to the next slide here, and we'll share a quick video. I don't believe the audio is working for this one, Adrian. But that's all right. We can just jump forward. As far as that video, I apologize for the technical difficulties. But ultimately, those quotations that I listed before were what that video was about. So, we don't. Again, just to conclude my section here, why do Michigan exporters need localized websites? Well, the world is online, as we saw in those previous infographics. The clients, your prospects, your future employees, your future suppliers, are all searching on Google and their individual country-specific Googles to build their business or build their professional or personal lives. So we're all here to prepare for this new normal. There's more online than ever, and of course, there's business development tools that are here to help facilitate that, and here to facilitate you being found, being understood, and being easy to do business with in those top markets. And just to touch on the Michigan Online Global Programs, of course, we're here to be a helping hand and work for you globally. These programs are, of course, here to help you reach new markets, generate leads, build brand awareness, all the things that were covered, would have been covered in that video, but also in the quotations. So this is something that we can touch on at the very end of this presentation. But before then, it's my pleasure to introduce to you all Mitch Fedie from Pettibone, a Michigan manufacturer who took advantage of localized websites and international marketing. And so he's here to just tell his story. Thank you, Mitch.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so I've been with the company 8.5 years now, and we've been doing the MyStep program, I believe ever since 2014 for various projects. We've used it for international trade shows. We did it for localized websites, which you see here, and now we're also using it for social media and Google SEO to promote these websites. So we have localized websites for Latin America, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, where we're trying to grow our sales, looking for distributorships or direct customers for our rail, construction, and oil and gas products. And we're a small team here at Pettibone. There's about 60 of us here, and the sales and marketing team is much smaller than that. There's only a couple of us here, so just having those additional resources for people that are familiar with the markets, because not only translating, but there's also a lot of different cultural behaviors. They may not use Facebook as much as, depending on the region, they may use different search engines. So have people that are specifically focused on things like that has been very, very beneficial for us for getting leads. And yeah, you can see here the different ads that they've created. A lot of stuff. We've reused some of our domestic content and had it translated for international purposes. So yeah, it's been very successful for us. Some of our equipment takes months to years to sell. So we've had these websites, I believe, since 2017, 2018, and yeah, again, have been having great success with it. It's something we wouldn't have been able to do internally.
Wonderful. Mitch, I know we said we were going to hold off questions to the end, but we had a few come in that I think are very specific for Pettibone. So I'm hoping I'm okay with interrupting you. But
sure.
One of the questions that we had come in was, why and how did you pick those markets? Did you pick Latin America? And then somebody noticed that you picked actually 2 markets in the Middle East. You have one for the UAE, one for Saudi in different languages. So can you tell us a little bit about how you came to selecting those markets and ultimately what sort of results you've gotten from those localized websites?
Sure. Part of it is historical success in the past. And another thing is too, there's a lot of oil and gas, and the oil and gas our products like a carry lift are primarily used to handle pipe. There's a lot of oil and gas activity. There's a lot of rail activity in these regions. So that's basically why we've picked them, and we've had success in the past selling these selling the equipment. As far as success, we've had different leads come in that we've sent to our sales agents that are covering the region. So I'm sorry, got distracted there. Does that help answer the question?
I think so. And just to follow up on that, this is a sort of a personal question, but do you think that it's given you more visibility as well to the performance of your in-market reps to have these websites now that you can kind of see the lead flow go through to them? Does it give you a little bit more of a better sense of how they're performing as in-market distributors and reps?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, our sales agent is located in Venezuela and covers Latin America, which is a giant territory for him. So we can also see too where we're getting website traffic, what products are being noticed more. So you can it's easier for him to pinpoint where he should be targeting.
That's great. Another question that came in just pertains to, I guess, the amount of time that this took to build and how much of your time was invested. So how long did it take for these websites to sort of be created and go live and be in the market? And how much time did you personally and your team, how much did you invest into this?
The websites, I would say it took probably, we'll say 3 months to get the websites up and running. A lot of it was, these are the products we like to sell. This information is on our domestic website, and please, take this information, translate it as appropriate, and go from there. So that was fairly straightforward. There's some, I guess, technical words that might get lost in translation that doesn't make sense to the industry. Fortunately, we have the agents who could also help review that and make some certain corrections, but it was pretty straightforward. I meet with IBT monthly for our program, SEO and social media programs. So it takes, the meeting's an hour, and a month for that. And of course, I have some follow-up things depending on what I need to do. But yeah, very little time that was involved. I guess the most time was getting the websites up and running, just doing the overall review.
Absolutely. And finally, the last question is actually as it pertains, and you mentioned leveraging the MI STEP grants. How much grant support has been available from the MEDC to help offset some of the costs of the website localization and your international online marketing?
Yeah, so the past couple years we've used, I think when we first started the program, it was 10,000 or 12,000, and now it's went up to 15,000. So we've used 100% of the grant money. The 15,000 was used for these social media and search engine campaigns.
Awesome. And then the final question, I know you mentioned, the business intelligence and the analytics that the marketing team is gathering that's helping inform and improve your business development strategy. Tell us a little bit more about that. How has that BI been able to optimize what you're doing in terms of your sales efforts?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the analytics, like I said, they show where the traffic is coming from. They can show you what product lines, what models users are looking at the most. So I would say that's the most important, and those are the most important analytics, other than getting somebody. We have a area where people can subscribe to view our content, and then also getting a contact request for a quote is what we want to see.
That's the real measure of success. Your leading
Yes.
KPI is, how many conversions you ultimately get there, how many leads are generated.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're going forward, you learn different things you wouldn't have thought. For example, we have the Saudi Arabian website that's in Arabic, but we also get a lot of traffic from Saudi Arabia that they go to the UAE website. So there's a lot of people that would speak English and would rather read it in English. But I think having both, it shows that you're invested in the region too. People, they seem to respect that.
That's great. Great. Well, Mitch, thank you so very much for your time. And if anybody has any questions or wants to connect with you, Mitch, how can they do that?
They can send me an email. I saw that it was listed in the slides, and also I'm on LinkedIn too. So if you want to connect, shoot me a connection request.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks again, Mitch, for your experience and your words in regards to the website localization and the international online marketing. Now I'll pass it back to Andrew, who's going to tell us about website localization for Michigan exporters and what are some of the best practices in that field. Over to you, Andrew.
Yep, thank you, Adrian. And again, thank you, Mitch, for sharing your story and just talking about some of the ROI that you've received from going online with Pettibone. So, here we're just to talk about some best practices of website localization. Again, it's one of those core competencies when you look at both of them being one, websites, and two, online marketing, which Adrian will touch on after this. So, when we look at websites, they're all really geared from search engines. And when we look at search engines, what's the #1 search engine in the world? As we see it, it's Google. And even Google has 192 different country or region specific search engines. So it is extremely important to not only have a US website, as most of you have, that's tailored to the US Google, but to then, as Mitch had mentioned, build a website in the top markets where it made sense: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Latin America, that were targeted towards those search engines. So the importance here is that search engines are localized and they're looking for content that's relevant for their in-market, in-country users. And here's just a good practical example of what we've seen with with these two. So we have two different searches here. On the left side of the screen, you'll see a search that I made here about squeakless dog toys, and from one of our coworkers, colleagues, who's usually joining us, Susanna Hardy, who's out in London. So between us two, we were able to search for the same result, squeakless dog toys, but we saw variably different results. So for us, we saw things that we're very familiar with, like Chewy.com or Amazon.com. And for Susanna, who's out in the UK, she saw things like barksandbunnies.co.uk or Amazon.co.uk or jetbunnies.co.uk. So these are things that aren't even relevant to us, but it comes from the same search that we have in our individual search engines. So just to give an example of how different a country-specific Google runs in different markets. And also, as Mitch and Adrian have mentioned, localizing kind of goes beyond just the translations for certain words. We have a pretty small example here, but is kind of broadcasted on a much larger base. When we look at one keyword that's relevant in two Spanish-speaking markets, one being Mexico and the other being Spain. So when we look at the word, what we know as car, in Mexico, individuals are going to be looking for auto. So you can see a graph on the left side, the pie chart, with 75% of the individuals in Mexico searching using the word auto instead of coche. Whereas in Spain, they're going to be using the word coche. So you see a larger percentage, 91% of individuals are going to be searching for that word, and auto is pretty much irrelevant to that. So this kind of underlines the importance of not using machine translations, because there are many words just like the word car that are going to be market specific, depending on which country you're looking to market your products for. Now we have a bit of best practices for creating websites and doing online marketing. We've mentioned how customer-centric the marketing strategic best practices have become. And these are some of the things that we see that go into a best practice website. Registering a domain name is extremely important. This is something that you can do even just by yourself today. Looking at some of your top markets, if you have a website like Mitch does, Pettibone.com, he invested in Pettibone.ar for Saudi Arabia, or Pettibone.ae for UAE, or Pettibone.lat. So this is something that you can take a look at even today for your own company and for your own domain names. Looking at multilingual navigation, this is in relation to the last slide that we looked at, as far as looking at certain country-specific languages and being able to navigate through your website. Being mobile enabled, as increasingly we see a lot of people searching on their phones, especially in other markets outside of the US. Being adapted to different designs, especially important when it comes to Arabic speaking regions like the UAE or Saudi Arabia. Being able to read from right to left, or use certain colors, or use certain techniques that are relevant to that region. Being fully adapted to the local language, looking at cultural aspects, the importance of that. Being optimized for search engines, hosted within those markets, using a content management system that is right for those markets, and of course looking at regulations. Regulations, data privacy are becoming very important in the US, but also they've been around and very relevant to other markets like Europe, to China, to Canada, all of which are some of Michigan's top export markets too. And then just to take a look at, what we're looking at right now is Google Analytics for a client. We've built a website for Australia. So just to look at these metrics, and just to note that this is an English-speaking website, and it's for, it's hosted in Australia. It is on a.au, but as far as the analytics show, there's nobody from the US, there's nobody from Canada that is searching for this website. It's all tailored for Australia and New Zealand. And the importance of Google Analytics and tracking some of the metrics is that you can even take a look even deeper. You can look at which regions of Australia are searching up your website. Obviously, for this company and for this region, New South Wales, Queensland, and Victoria are going to be hotspots for them to extend their marketing practices and be able to be even more specific to those regions that are important to them. And then we also have another client here, a client who's appeared on some of our webinars before that have utilized the Michigan Online Global Programs, Armor Protective Packaging, based in Michigan. And for them, they've went global not only in Canada and China, but they've also done it on an annual basis to be found using their website and using marketing in a lot of different markets. So for them, the most important pieces of the puzzle were increasing their brand awareness, so being known as a global entity, their brand positioning, depending on whether they decided to use a distributor in markets or use a lead generation tool to find new leads in those markets. Again, finding new distributors and supporting them was a big goal for them, and for them to grow their overall sales revenue, it was to drive the business forward using a globalized approach. And just to touch on the Michigan Online Global Programs, as both Adrian and Mitch mentioned, it's kind of split up into two different facets. We've got the website portion where we can build websites from one market to two markets to a custom amount of markets depending on your scope of work. So depending on your objectives, we're here to work with you and find what works best. We have a few different examples of websites we've built, kind of shown at the bottom in screenshots, and a list of benefits for each of those websites. So we're here to work with you, and of course the Michigan STEP grant is a key piece of the puzzle when financial aspects come into play. We also are very involved in e-commerce, so when it comes to building your own shopping cart and your own website, things like Shopify, if you're familiar, or WooCommerce, these are things that have been increased in demand for. And a few different clients down below kind of share their stories and what that looks like using different e-commerce shopping carts for not only the US, but for other markets that are relevant to them too.
Perfect. Well, sorry about that. I have the second poll here. We got a poll for everybody, just to keep everybody on your toes here. And there we go. We're launching the poll right now. And that poll question is would you like to learn more about website localization and the Michigan Online Global Programs? Are you interested in learning more about the different programs that IBT Online offers in conjunction, that can be used in conjunction with the STEP grants available from the MEDC to help support your business growth wherever your target markets are? So thank you. We see a lot of people piping in with their answers. And we're just going to give everybody a few more seconds to chime in. There's options there for website localization into one country, into two countries, leveraging those grants. There's also options available for e-commerce and website redesign, which is increasingly something companies are looking at when they're looking at foreign markets and they need to be mobile first. Is your website mobile first? Do you need to look at website redesign as one of your criteria? So thank you so very much, everybody, for your active participation there. I am going to close the poll now. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to talking a little bit about marketing trends for Michigan companies in 2022. So let's talk about marketing for a second and why it works for B2B. I know a lot of the people here today are B2B companies, and it's okay if you were or if you are a skeptic of social media for business development. But if you are or if you were, lean in and let's have some real talk, because you absolutely need a robust social media strategy to succeed internationally in 2022. So this is a question we get asked pretty often, is why do I need a social media strategy? And is it even worth it? Is there any ROI in doing this? And the answer, in our opinion, of course, but it's also supported by a massive amount of data, is a resolute yes, absolutely, you must do this. And the reason why is that social media allows us to build brand awareness. It allows us to connect with your audiences and really make sure that they can find you and you can find them in a way, in a time, and a place where they are active and engaged. Social media is one of the most powerful ways to connect with your audiences and to build a community. Sprout Social, which is one of those places where they collect a lot of this data, reports that when consumers follow a brand on social, 67% of those consumers are more likely to spend money with that brand. And 78% say that they will visit that brand's physical retail space. And you might say, but Adrian, that's all B2C. What about B2B? Well, let me tell you, Hootsuite just recently reported that LinkedIn, with its advanced targeting options and sort of the demographic options that they have available for search and for ad targeting and for lead generation there, can deliver 277% more leads than Facebook or Twitter for the B2B market. So social media helps you attract buyers to your products and your services, and it gives you the ability to directly have conversations with those individuals at the time and the place of their choosing. And what's so exciting about social media marketing is that it has really leveled the playing field for brands of all sizes to get the visibility and engagement regardless of the industry that they're in. And just like any business strategy, you can adjust and optimize your social media presence to align with your business objectives. So we were just hearing from Mitch, and Mitch, his objectives are to generate leads for their distributors and their reps, and have more visibility to lead performance and to distributor performance given those leads. So that's an important KPI, and you can certainly align a strategy around that goal. But if your goal is to generate e-commerce sales or to find new distributors or even find new suppliers, which is a big issue in today's sort of a logistically challenged supply chain world, this can all be achieved by leveraging social media tools with the added benefit of being able to measure the performance on a very granular level and a very continuous basis. You don't have to wait a quarter to get results. You can look at results today, by the hour, by the minute. And importantly, you can differentiate your strategy in one market versus another. So, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide. But you may be asking yourself, what do you mean differentiation? Well, what does that even look like? Well, ask yourself, who are your customers, and what do they look like? We refer to different types of customers as buyer personas. That's the buzzword, buyer persona. And what is a buyer persona, you may be asking? Well, HubSpot defines it as a fictional representation of your ideal customers based on demographic information and real data about your existing clients. So what's important to know, however, is that your international buyer persona can be very different from your domestic persona. Think about it very simply. Here in the US, you may be doing direct sales to end clients for heavy machinery, for instance. But in foreign markets, because of all the logistical challenges that there are, and of course, the issues of customer service and customer care and language barriers, you may have international reps or you may have distributors or dealers in that market. Well, that's different because then your buyer persona in that market is going to be different, and the messaging to that buyer persona has to be different. And then here are some questions on the slide that you can ask yourself to really help you determine how those buyer personas are different across markets. And what you want to do is identify, who are these buyer personas, how do they find you, and what are the things that they care about. So here's a sort of a different case study, L'Oreal. And L'Oreal is frequently cited for how spot on they are with their international marketing. Here in the USA, L'Oreal USA, you see this picture from their website on here, the screenshot, and it shows women on the top floor, empowered, in charge. There's a lot of diversity displayed. But here is their website in, there we go. Well, it's supposed to be showing you a picture of their website in Mexico. Unfortunately, it isn't. But if it were showing you a picture of their website in Mexico, what you would see is an office environment that's a bit more relaxed, that has men included in there, and where there's a lot of collaboration and working here. But on this next slide, what you see is Brazil, and the Brazilian website definitely looks a lot different than the previous two. You can tell this is Brazil from the background just by seeing that the water and the mountains and the natural features. And you can also see that it is modern but tied to nature. And these are all sort of values that are pertinent to Brazilian people's lives. Even the messaging is different. You know, in Brazil, they're saying that they have been innovating for 60 years to share beauty with all Brazilians. So each buyer persona is clearly different, the audience is different, and their messaging is respectful of those nuances. So buyer personas also behave differently, which is very important to understand. And if you're curious as to how those personas can really vary across geographies, here's an example. And this is an example of how buyer personas in Mexico and the UK interact with social media campaigns. So this is an example from a social media campaign on Facebook that we ran promoting the same products. It was very similar imagery. The messaging was the same, although of course translated. And it was just relevant to our local audiences in Mexico and the United Kingdom. Now, if we look at the results and we look at the analytics for that specific post for the UK, you would look at that and say, well, you know, you only got about 1,200 engagements. Is that any good? But then you look at the performance report for Mexico and you see that they were absolutely blown away with 20,000 engagements from that same post. So look at the difference, 1,200, 20,000 different engagements. So if we stop here and we only looked at this from a sort of a surface level, we would say that the campaign was just more effective in Mexico, wasn't it? But actually, that's not the full story. The full story is if you look at the number of conversions that happen as a result of those engagements, what we looked at over the full year was there was a lot more engagement in Mexico. You can see that in the blue and red bars. And just look at Mexico versus UK in the blue and red. You know, engagement here is measured as the number of times somebody clicked on it, liked it, shared the posting. And that's important for sort of long-term brand awareness. But what about lead generation? That's the important bit, right? So if we look closer, we can see that the UK and Mexico are much more similar if we're looking for lead generation. And that is reflected in the green and yellow bars on the second chart. These show the number of times that people have clicked on where can I buy or how can I use. And what you see here is that the Mexican buyer persona engages a lot more easily than the Brits, meaning that's why you get that 20,000 versus 1,200. But in terms of the actual lead generation and actual conversion, actual sales, it's about the same. So what that really tells us is that to get that same level of revenue, that same level of conversions in Mexico and in the UK, you're going to have to do a lot more to get that visibility and get that brand awareness in Mexico. So the buyer personas in the two markets are behaving very differently to the same content. So here's some best practices for online marketing in 2022. Our advice is really simple. It's fewer, bigger, better. And what that means is that there's a lot of options when it comes to social media. There's 1,000,000,001 platforms. So depending on what your goals are, choose wisely and pick a path to success when it comes to a social media portfolio. So pick fewer platforms where your buyer persona is present, and then be bigger on that platform. Have a strategy, have a content strategy, have a brand strategy that is aligned with all those, and then improve the quality of your content frequently on there. Video is a big part of this. We didn't touch upon video today, but increasing your video content and investing into video content will optimize and increase the results of your returns on social media investment. So trying to manage presences on multiple platforms can likely stretch your resources, not just your monetary resources, but your human resources, and you'll quickly reach diminishing returns if you're not creating unique platform for each, unique content for each platform. So again, pick your platforms wisely, identify your buyer personas, understand your buyer's journey, and then overall, don't give up. It's a process of iteration, it's a process of continuous improvement. So the Michigan Online Gold programs, just to conclude here, as Mitch mentioned, as Alyssa mentioned, also include international online marketing. That's comprised of search engine marketing to optimize your visibility on the search engines, social media marketing, and then the business and analytics piece where you get all that reporting and you get all that feedback, which allows you, as we discussed in Mitch's case, to optimize his business development strategy. So that's a very important part of what we do. That's also covered by the Michigan STEP grant. So, and that can help you accelerate your export growth and reach your target buyer persona faster and more efficiently. So time for our last poll question here before we head into our Q&A and our takeaways. So I'm going to launch that poll really quickly here. Let's see. And that poll question is, would you like to learn more about online marketing and the Michigan Online Global Program? So if you're interested in having conversation about what you can do on social media, what you can do in terms of search engine marketing to optimize your website, to make yourself findable in international markets where you're trying to grow your exports, let us know in the poll here. I'm going to leave it open for just a few more seconds. Thank you so much for everyone's engagement. Wow, a lot of you really want to learn about marketing. That's great. That's great. We have a lot of free resources outside of this webinar that we can share for that purpose. So just a few more seconds for the last couple of people to submit their vote. And we'll just give it another 2 seconds. There we go. Last chance, and we're closing it up. Super. So time for some takeaways and some Q&A for everybody. So I have here just a slide to share with you on why Michigan exporters need online business development tools. You know, Andrew said it best, but the trend to digital and the conversion to digital is happening. It's an unstoppable force. The world is coming online, and then your clients, your prospects, future employees, future suppliers, they're all online. And they're searching online in their local environment, in their language, and in their local search engine. So to prepare for this, I hate using it, but the new normal, what can you do? What tools are there that allow you to be found, to be understood, and to be easy to do business with and grow your export business? 2 of those tools are available out there are localized websites and online marketing. And so together with the MEDC, we have created the Michigan Online Global Programs to help you do just that and to help you achieve your goals. To make the internet work for you globally, to create an international sales funnel of leads, and to generate revenue outside of the United States. With that, I will ask if there are any questions here. Let's see, there is one question here for Alyssa. Let's see if Alyssa's still on. Maybe. So Alyssa, the question, if you can hear, is if I'm interested in the Michigan Online Global Programs, do I contact IBT online first, or do I contact the trade managers first?
That's a great question. I would say contact your international trade manager, but honestly, there's no wrong answer. You can contact IBT online. There's very easy and quick coordination between IBT online and our trade managers. So really, there's no wrong answer. Connect with whomever you have an opportunity to. Do it as soon as you are able, and we'll make sure that you're well taken care of from either and both sides.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. And a question here for Andrew. And the question for Andrew pertains, I guess, to, this is a company that does business in Asia and in China. China's a complicated market. What are the new rules for creating a website in China? And can IBT Online help?
Wow, I mean, that's a big question because there are a lot of regulations when it comes to China and specifically building an online presence. Obviously, you know, China is very closed off. They've got their own kind of internal firewall. So, I mean, we're welcome to share resources afterwards, but ultimately what it boils down to create a website or create a marketing program using Chinese social media and search engine is having a partner in market, a trusted partner, whether that be a trusted distributor, an office that you have within China, a representative, an agent, or there's other, I guess, agencies that can help you with this. Ultimately, they have to be trusted because the Chinese government just kind of requires you to have an in-market address, in-market emails, in-market phone numbers, in-market individual that can help you get started within that market. So we're more than welcome to assist you with that process as far as getting the domain name registered, operating in the market, point you in the right direction. So if you do have any questions, our emails are all listed there, and we're happy to help.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, I want to thank, those are all the questions. So I just want to thank Alyssa Tracey, Director of International Trade at the MEDC. I want to thank Mitch Fedie, Marketing Manager at Pettibone, Traverse Lift up in the Upper Peninsula. I want to thank Andrew in Grand Rapids. And if you have any questions, our emails are on your screen. You can always connect with us as well on social media, on LinkedIn. We're there. Find us and connect with us. We're happy to answer any additional questions that you have. And on behalf of IBT Online, I wish everybody here a wonderful Thursday afternoon, and to stay safe and stay warm. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.